And then, oh, I think I have to take down the screen share and then restart it. So let me just do that really quick. Okay, can everybody see the screen? I just need to hear from one of you that you can see my screen. Yep, okay, cool. The reason I do that, for those of you who weren't in here last trimester, is that there were a couple times I was talking for like 5 minutes and nobody said anything and they couldn't see what I was talking about. So now I just make a point to make sure that I ask. All right, so we get a glance. Once again, there's chapters 1, 2, and 3 that you should have read by the end of today. I'll be posting the quiz by this afternoon. The organizer is here. Just make sure, well, you won't be able to write on it, so you'll have to make a copy for yourself. And that's a really good way to take notes. And they go along nicely with the slideshows. So, you know, if you want to see the slideshows, just go to that folder on the slideshows and check them out. And you should be able to answer a lot of the questions right from the slideshows. Okay, so today we're going to look at a couple things. The intro question is, what way do people cope with the problem of scarcity? And this is just, I need you guys to answer this. I'm not going to answer for you, but think about one thing you want or need but can't have it because it's too expensive. So just throw out some ideas to me. What's something you guys maybe want but can't buy right now? Anybody? Nobody wants anything?
The PS5.
The PS5. Okay, somebody wants a PS5. So, and I know they're not cheap. I don't know how much they cost, and my kids haven't asked for those yet, but I know that they're expensive. So questions: what steps could businesses take to make this item less costly to produce and therefore more affordable for customers? And what could you do as a consumer to better afford it? So when you're looking at economics, those are kind of two of the basic questions. Is producers obviously want to make a product and make a profit off of it. But if they can bring the prices down, believe it or not, a lot of times they can make more money because more people can buy it. I don't know if I have any brilliant ideas to bring down the cost of PS5s. I think they're probably overpriced because it probably costs them about $25 to make the console. But what can you do as students at your age in order to be able to afford it? How many of you have jobs?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mitch, Jess, who else? Amy has a job too. Yeah. So as a high school student, that's like one of the things you can do is get a job to afford things. I had a job from the time I was 14. So, because I got a small allowance from my parents, but not enough to pay for the things that I wanted. Okay, so economic growth is just an increase in the nation's total output of goods and services over time. Why do you guys think that's important? Why is it important for our economy to grow and not shrink? And we had some of that this year. We had our economy shrink a bit this year because of the pandemic. Why is that bad? What happens? So what happens to jobs? Anybody have a guess? So if the economy is, yeah, we start losing jobs. I mean, there were lots of jobs. There was lots of unemployment when the pandemic first hit because, especially if you're in an industry like the service industry where restaurants were closed, small retailers were closed, it's hard to stay afloat. So how can we support it? I know there's a lot on this page, but these go along nicely with your review sheet and just some definitions. Investing in new physical and human resources involves risks and sacrifices to increase future production. But by investing in physical and human resources, physical would be like if you were a company and you're building, let's just say you're building cars, and you're able to purchase a new piece of equipment that uses less money to run, maybe it uses less materials, and it only takes a person a half an hour to do something that used to take an hour, it's going to make the cost of the car less. So that would increase how much money the company is making. When more products can be produced with the same amount of resources, productivity goes up. So if you guys remember from US history last year, when the assembly line came into play with Ford and the cars, all of a sudden cars went from being unreasonable to purchase to the average family being able to buy a car because the price went down. Human capital is also very important, and we're going to talk about education in just a minute. And then division of labor, specialization, and interdependence. I couldn't do Mr. Mendenwald's job. I'm not trained to do that. I would need some training before I was able to do a job like that. I certainly couldn't be a doctor. I don't have the training to be a doctor. And I would bet, there are people in a job as a doctor that couldn't come and teach. So having this division of labor and specialization allows the economy to grow because people do what they're good at. And when you're good at something, it takes less input for the same amount of output, even as a human. So this is in your book, and in the review sheet, there's a little assignment in there for you to do to look at some of these numbers. And I just wanted you to look too, and I know all of you are on track to graduate from high school, but sometimes I run into kids that don't want to graduate from high school. And so I say, just looking at this chart and looking at unemployment rate, and obviously this is a few years old, but the unemployment rate for people who have a high school diploma is almost twice as much as somebody that has a 2-year associate's degree. The salary for somebody that graduates with less than a high school diploma is slightly more than half of what a person with a 2-year degree makes. And even as if you're a person with a high school diploma, you're still going to be making significantly more in a year than if you don't graduate at all. So those are really important numbers to look at. And kids always ask, I've had kids that, what does it matter if I graduate from high school, I can get a job? Yep, but you're going to make a lot less over a lifetime than if you actually do graduate from high school. We're talking almost $500,000. And that's just between a high school diploma and not having a diploma. As you go up in those degrees, obviously it's going to be a lot more. So like I said, I know all of you are planning on graduating, but it's just something to look at. It's a good section to read in your book, and then to answer those questions that are on the review sheet, because there will be some questions on the quiz about that. Okay, the next model I'm showing you is the circular flow of economics. You're going to see this, it's going to come up more than once, and we're looking at the factors of production. And if we were in class, I would have you guys refer back to me, what are those factors? So it's land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs, it could be like the businesses. So goods and services are bought and sold in product markets. All people are connected by these markets. So in America, goods and services are what run this country. The buying and selling of goods and services. And I actually have a little graphic I'm going to show you guys. So, this I believe can also be accessed in your book, but I just wanted to do this little thing together. So we have the circular flow shows how markets connect people and businesses in the economy. Drag the phrases to either the product markets or the factor markets category to show what type of activities occur. So a product is what? Anybody? So a product is a good that somebody is providing. A factor, so then what's a factor market? Well, let's just do it. Anybody want to hazard a guess? Can somebody help me with this? So I don't just do it for you guys. Otherwise, I'm just going to reveal answers. Anybody want to play? No? Okay. I'm just going to reveal. Oops. Okay. So things that you buy. A cell phone, vending machine snack, using credit to pay for sneakers. Factor market would be like hiring two employees. If you're a business and you hire somebody to make a product. renting office space for a business. So you have a place to run your business, or purchasing patent rights from a scientist. So if you create an invention, you actually have to pay for those rights. Those are all things that are factors into producing something. This whole flow chart is something that you guys are going to want to know. And I did put it in the slide, or it's in the slideshow for today, and it's also in the chapter review, because I think it's super important that you guys know it. Oh, I don't know what just happened there. Okay. Do you guys have any questions on that? All right. Make sure you take a good look at that. I'd really like to see you guys read that section in your book, just because, like I said, it's going to come out time and again. If you don't understand this circular flow, it's going to make this class really hard. Oops. Shoot. Okay. How to think like an economist. First of all, economists use models to break things down and make it easier to understand. So that circular flow, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a visual learner, so it makes it easier for me to understand where things are coming from and where things are going. All models are based on assumptions, meaning that they're not always true, but they're based on the facts that are at hand and the things that generally work. A cost-benefit analysis compares the benefits of an action or a decision with its expected costs. That you can do into like a little chart, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a second. And taking small steps towards the final goal is wise, especially when we're unsure of exactly what costs are involved. Okay, now I do need some class interaction here. Let me stop this for a second. Let me come back to the screen and see you guys. So, question. Cost benefit. We talked about trade-offs, and one of the questions that I asked was, what's your trade-off for coming to school? And you said, well, you could be sleeping instead. A cost benefit analysis is something that is similar to that. You look at the cost of a product and the benefits for paying the money for that product. Now, you can get really complicated when you get into business, or it can be something as simple as coming to school or as going to work. So what's the cost of going to work? For those of you who had jobs, what do you think not like monetarily necessarily, but what does it cost to go to work?
It's pretty much just your time.
Mm-hmm.
No sleep.
It's your time. It's no sleep. What's the benefit? Why do so many kids want to work? Money. Yeah. So that's an easy one. You get a job in high school because you want the money for it. Another thing you might get from it, depending on your job, is learning the skills that maybe you can use after you graduate. Jessica was just talking to me that she's getting trained on closing. And I said, yeah, and once you know how to do that and can be in a shop or store by yourself, you can eventually manage. So, which leads to more money, and possibly a better job in the future. So those little things really add up. Same thing with school. If you go back to that education chart, you can see if you don't graduate from high school, you're not going to make very much money. If you decide to go on to a technical school or college, you're going to have a much more comfortable standard of living. So those are all things to take into consideration. Okay, then I just have one more slide, I think. So what's coming up? So we're going to be looking at the free enterprise system. We will be looking at the standard of living, and what is the standard of living, and what's the poverty level, and how many people in the U.S. live below that? What's a comfortable standard of living, and is that different here than it is, say, in New York City? And obviously the answer to that is yes. I was watching something on TV last night and said the average restaurant worker in New York City makes $15 an hour, which if you're single and live in Monroe, that's okay. That's about $30,000 a year. You can do okay on that. But in New York City, the cost of an apartment is $1,000 a month for a little tiny single room efficiency apartment. So $1,000 a month all of a sudden isn't very much, or $30,000 a year isn't very much at that point. So we'll be looking at that. Studying econ helps people become better decision makers because you begin to weigh your costs and your benefits. You begin to weigh your trade-offs. as you guys get older, teenagers start to make better decisions. And I would like to think that I make pretty good decisions now. I don't think that I make great decisions all the time, but I think the older you get, the less likely you are to make poor decisions because you didn't think something through. And then economics connects us to the entire world. All of you want to graduate from high school so that you can get a job. That job is going to help you get the things that you want in this world. And that money goes to our US economy, which goes to the global economy. So we're all connected through econ. And once again, all those connections are something that I think could be valuable to you as we move forward in this class. I have a student here today, and we were just talking a little bit about the stock market, and I said I've been just playing a little bit with it, just trying to see how it works. And that stock market is tied to the global economy, and people can make thousands and thousands of dollars on it. So it's important to just understand at least how it works. I'm not saying you have to go out and trade stocks, but it's just a little something that connects me to the rest of the world. Okay, any questions? All right, so I gotta do something real quick here.
Sorry, I wasn't answering.